If you have followed the Rippaverse, since we've been a thing, July the 11th, almost 2 years to the date. Actually, a few days before, we released the Rippaverse, like Welcome to the Rippaverse kind of trailer, where I was telling you guys that this thing was on the way. And I, really emphasized our approach. I talked about our code of ethics, things that we stand for, that you guys get to hold us to. And we're obviously tested every day with it. You're going to be tested every day, but it's very important to have those sets of ethics, because as you bring new people in, they need to understand the standard. And of course, that tone is set by the people that are already here. We did a video on Rippaverse, YouTube, if you go watch it, also on other forms of social media, reminding you guys of the apolitical nature of the Rippaverse. And I don't want to say surprisingly, I think some people take exception to that. They're right. Doesn't change anything because it's what we've been and that's who we're going to be. I think that it would have been, let's say, easy for me to do that. I don't think it would have lasted long term, but it would have been easy for me to just come out and be just completely antithetical to what I was seeing in the comic books. And by antithetical, I don't mean like just not doing what they do, because yes, we don't do that, of course, especially as it pertains to a lot of the social issues and the social justice stuff. We don't touch that. But when I say anti, I'm meaning we didn't create the Rippaverse out of spite. The stories aren't inspired out of spite. It isn't to try to spite leftism. It isn't an attempt to make it about my social preferences or even political preferences. Okay. Our number one rule here is that you leave all that at the door. Sure, I do. I know the political views of some of our employees, definitely the guys that have been around for a while and people that I know from other things that are here. There's a lot of them I have no idea what their political positions are because I don't care. The number one rule has always been leave it at the door, and it will remain that way. That's our standard. If you, on the other hand, are a comic book company and you have aspirations and you just want to make things that are just like the right version of what woke quote unquote people do, so you just more so making stuff that pertains to your own individual politics, it may work out for you. That's your thing. But for me, that's not interested in it. That's not what the company is trying to do. I'm trying to make this fun sandbox that really does focus on, the actual universe element, the stories that are being told, and its characters. And I want to make it fun for everybody. I do not believe, and I reject, and I talk about this in that video, because I reject the idea that everything is political. I think that's nonsense. It makes political a nonsensical term, or rather, it's not a meaningful one if it does apply to each and everything. I do believe in that there are universal truths, and I do understand that if you have a set of guiding principles, that's going to even help maybe navigate you when it comes to not just writing a story, but comprehending one. Totally understand that, but there's a difference between that and beating your audience over the head, or just having something that's really ham-fisted, heavy-handed, narratives about, again, like maybe to spite leftists. It's not anything that I'm interested in. And this is the benefit of the Rippaverse. Some folks are like, well, don't you worry about maybe that people that do have political agendas and maybe they'll infiltrate. No. Yeah, of course you got to be wary. You got to be aware. You got to have, that's why the ethics are there, because should those get violated, well, you're no longer going to be within the company. And I can't pretend that we're going to be absolutely perfect in that regard, but we have our defenses up. Okay. So you have to be aware for sure. But because I'm the sole owner, you don't get a hijack. You don't get a full infiltration. It quite literally can't happen, because nobody can oust me as the owner. We're not a publicly traded company with some board that everybody must I have to answer to. I am the sole owner. So the buck stops with me. Whether we succeed or fail, that's on me. And this is why we will remain a completely private company. Sure, maybe missing out on some other funds. I'm okay with that. But I'd rather it be on my own watch. That's why I started this company. So that's not anything that we necessarily have to worry about. But there's another thing that I put on your mind. If you should learn anything else from me, anything else from what happened with the Rippaverse, it's this. Guys, those tactics that you may be afraid of are not exclusive to leftists. You guys have seen the development of the Rippaverse. and how people that you maybe think would more or less like be closely aligned with me in certain political aspects, they felt some kind of way. Learn, and I mentioned this in a tweet, from my own naivety, because I was naive. Even when warned against, I was naive. And maybe you can make that argument that, hell, you're more likely to get backstabbed by people that align with you than some other person that makes it known what they're attempting to do. You see, there's a difference between like the complete ideologues and those that lead with their political views among all. That's the difference between like a moderate blue dog Democrat and a social justice warrior. Social justice warriors don't have an off switch. Everything must fit within the scope of what they believe in, and they will try to force it in even when it does not. They cannot turn it off. We don't have those types of people here on either side, because it would be against our ethics if it swung the other way and someone was trying to, let's say, make these stories just be representative of one individual political view and beating audiences over the head, or rather you're trying to use the company to spread that. You know, that's not what we're about. Again, people have their own politics. We've been tested here before when you had guys like those people that got mad at Andrew for like Harry Potter and his position on that, were messaging us using our help desk saying, oh, you look what your employee said online. And we told them to go screw themselves. That's not how this works over here. My employees and my contractors, they get to be themselves. If it conflicts with business, we address it. But so as long as it don't, you get to be whoever that you want to be. And I believe we get the best out of them because they don't have to worry about being canceled because of a political view that they had. We don't play that over here, because our common goal here is to make the Rippaverse a nice, fun, welcoming sandbox and give people a universe to get lost in. That's what we do here. I don't care where you're at on the political spectrum. That's irrelevant to me. Can't you leave it at the door or not? Can you make sure that this does not conflict with business? And if you can, keep all of that stuff out and be someone that just is competent. There may be a spot for you here. And that's a reason. There's a reason why, you know, the only people that work for the Rippaverse are, let's say, as far as my political views, the ANCAP. If you think that's all we hire, I don't think there's enough ANCAPs that I could find to employ. You know what I'm saying? Out here, especially. I don't care. When I got someone operating a forklift at the warehouse, I'm not asking them what their political view. I don't care. Can you operate the forklift? Can you get the pallets off of the pallet positions? You know what I'm saying? It's goal-oriented. It's work-oriented. That's how we function as a business. And I'm not reinventing the wheel by doing that. This used to be a standard. It wasn't until recently where everything became so hyper-politicized, where people feel as if they can't even have legitimate discussions with people that may differ from them politically. And that's where like this perpetually online sort of viewpoint has gotten in the way of reality, because if you think on your day-to-day, you're not talking politics. And if you are, you're probably miserable, or you work in politics. But most people don't work in politics. You would more than likely have co-workers and family members that you're cordial with, that you respect with, that you love and adore. And either you don't know what their political views are, or it doesn't get in the way of that. This used to be a standard, especially in America. And I can only control what I can control. So I'm not telling people to replicate and do what we do, because it may not make sense for you. Maybe you have other aspirations, but for what I'm trying to do, what the Rippaverse is trying to do, leave that crap at the door and let's be great. That's it. Simple as that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to head over to Rippaverse.com to check out our comic book company. We have books, plenty of merchandise, and even some glorious animations from Rippaverse Studios.